Good morning and welcome to our webinar on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Individual Fellowships. My name is Sibylla Martinelli and I'm one of the two Swiss national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, and I will guide you through this webinar. Let me briefly explain the setup of this webinar. The big window displays the slides of the presentation. On the upper right, you see a photo of the speaker, of myself, and below that photo you find a chat window. You can use the chat function and ask your questions during the webinar. We will collect your questions and try to answer some of them during the presentation via the chat and some at the end of this session. Another possibility is to email your queries to msca@euresearch.ch. You will get a written answer after the webinar. And also after the webinar, we will make the presentations available on our YouTube channel. On our agenda today is a short introduction in which I will talk about the status of Switzerland and give you some information on the MSCA in general. Then there will be a part on the modalities of the individual fellowships, covering the specifics of the different types of fellowships, the different parts of the proposal, the budget, and also the evaluation of the submitted proposals. I will show you some call statistics also. And in a last part, I will explain you where and how you can get help and further information if you got interested in writing such an individual fellowship proposal. The woman who inspired the Commission to create the mobility program, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, was already 100 years ago convinced that science should be international. And in that sense, I am happy to tell you that from 1st January 2017 onward, Switzerland is again fully associated to Horizon 2020. Participation for Swiss researchers and institutions whatsoever anymore. The Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are part of the Excellent Science pillar of Horizon 2020, and the programs in this pillar are supposed to raise the level of excellence in Europe's science space by making Europe an attractive location for the world's best researchers and thus attracting world-class researchers to Europe. I find this worth mentioning because if you want to apply for an individual fellowship, you need to keep in the back of your mind the whole policy background that comes with this action. The Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions provide funding for excellent researchers. They encourage mobility across borders and sectors, and they foster collaboration among individuals and institutions. So, to prevent the so-called brain drain away from Europe, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions aim at ensuring the optimum development and dynamic use of Europe's intellectual capital in order to generate new skills, knowledge and innovation. They have a budget of roughly 6 billion euro for the total duration of Horizon 2020. So there is a Marie Skłodowska-Curie action for every stage of a career. They are bottom-up, meaning the topics are not defined by the European Commission, but the applicants are free to choose the research area and topics. A central part is the mobility aspect. For most of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, eligibility of the participants depends on their willingness to go abroad. And another central part is the training aspect. They are also about crossing borders in terms of sectors and disciplines. And they are not just some more of the regular research funding programs, but their focus is rather on the development of knowledge and enhancement of skills with a strong focus on attractive working and employment conditions. There are four main types of actions within the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Three of them are host-driven, meaning that the host institutions apply for funding. The individual fellowships, however, are individual-driven, meaning that an individual researcher can apply for funding of a project. And today's webinar is about these individual fellowships, which are awarded to the most promising experienced researchers, and they are individual and transnational. They aim at enhancing the creative and innovative potential of experienced researchers and at diversifying their individual competence in terms of skills acquisition through advanced training, international and intersectoral mobility. Eligible researchers are researchers who either have a PhD or at least 4 years of research experience at the relevant deadline for submission of proposals. So the reference date for the eligibility is the call deadline. From there you count backwards. Eligible institutions are institutions active in research and research training. Examples are universities, public and private research institutes, international European interest organizations, and international organizations. I mentioned before that a central aspect of these fellowships is the researcher's mobility. In order to be eligible, a researcher has to comply with the mobility rule, which says that the researcher should not have resided or carried out his or her main activity in the country of the future host organization for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the call deadline. So again, you count backwards from the reference date, which is the call deadline. In 3 different panels of the individual fellowships, the mobility rule is slightly modified. I will explain you the details later. And for the global ship, important to note that the mobility rule only applies to the outgoing phase of the fellowship. For all the different types of individual fellowships, there is the possibility to add secondments. Secondments are short stays away from the host institution. They can be spent at one or more than one partner organization. Intersectoral and cross-border mobility is not a must here. So secondments can also be spent in the same sector and also in the country of the host institution. They can be divided into shorter mobility periods, and they should last maximally 3 months if the total duration of your fellowship is less than 18 months, or maximally 6 months if the total duration of your fellowship is more than 18 months. If you add a secondment, it should be just be clearly justified and also described in Part B of the proposal. The transfer of knowledge should contribute significantly to the impact of the fellowships. Here you see the different types of Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowships. There are 4 different subtypes of the European Fellowship, and then there is also the Global Fellowship. The European Fellowship is for fellows coming to or moving within Europe. And the Global Fellowship is for fellows from Europe going to a third country and returning to Europe. I'm going to explain you these 2 types of fellowships in a bit more detail now, starting with the European Fellowships. Here, the project proposals are submitted by the host organization in liaison with the researcher. The host organization is represented by the supervisor, and the proposals for individual fellowships involve a single host organization established in a member state or associated country. The beneficiary is the host organization that recruits the experienced researcher under the conditions established in the grant agreement and ensures through appointment of a supervisor the necessary training of the researcher. The supervisor will act in the name of the organization until the grant preparation phase. And the beneficiary signs the grant agreement, receives the funding, claims costs, and takes complete responsibility for the execution of the proposal. To be eligible for a standard European fellowship, the researcher must be a so-called experienced researcher, which means she or he must, at the deadline for the submission of proposals, be in possession of a doctoral degree, or have at least 4 years of full-time equivalent research experience. The researcher may be of any nationality, but must move or have moved from any country to the member state or associated country where the beneficiary is located, so the future host organization. The researcher must comply with the mobility rule, which says that he or she must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of the host organization for more than 12 months in the 3 years immediately prior to the deadline for submission of proposals. Researchers can apply for funding for 12 to 24 months, and the standard European fellowship comes with 8 scientific panels plus 3 multidisciplinary panels, which are the Career Restart, the Reintegration, and the Society and Enterprise panel. For a standard European fellowship that does not involve Career Restart or Reintegration, researchers fulfilling all eligibility conditions may apply for one of the 8 scientific panels, according to the topic of their research proposal. These panels are chemistry, social sciences and humanities, economic sciences, information science and engineering, environment and geosciences, life sciences, mathematics, and physics. During the evaluation, each scientific panel will have a separate ranking list. The Career Restart panel is a multidisciplinary panel of the European fellowships which provides financial support to individual researchers who want to resume research in Europe after a career break, meaning after, for example, after parental leave or working outside research. The applicant will have to indicate at submission stage in which of the 8 scientific areas their proposal best fits in order to have the optimal expert allocation. Following evaluation, there will be one ranked list for all Career Restart proposals. Researchers applying within this panel can be of any nationality, but the beneficiary must be a participant located in a member state or associated country. And to be eligible for this panel, the researcher must move or have moved from any country to the member state or associated country where the beneficiary is located. The Career Restart mobility rule says that the researcher must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of his or her host organization for more than 36 months in the 5 years immediately prior to the deadline for submissions of proposal. And last but not least, the researcher must have undertaken a career break in research. So the researcher must not have been active in research for at least 12 months prior to the deadline for submission of proposals. The Reintegration Panel is a multidisciplinary panel of the European fellowships dedicated to researchers who want to return and reintegrate in a longer-term research position in Europe. To be eligible for this panel, the researcher must not only be an experienced researcher, but also a national or long-term resident of a member state or associated country. So here is a difference to the standard European fellowship and the Career Restart panel. Here, nationality of the researchers is taken into account. The beneficiary must be located, so the host institution must be located in an EU member state or associated country, and the researcher must move or have moved from a third country to the member state or associated country where the host institution is located. Furthermore, the researcher must comply with the Research in Reintegration Panel mobility rule, which says that he or she must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of the host organization for more than 36 months in the 5 years prior to the call deadline. And there is a third multidisciplinary panel since 2016, the Society and Enterprise panel, which is dedicated to career opportunities for researchers who want to work on a project in an organization from the non-academic sector. The researcher can be of any nationality but must move or have moved from anywhere in the world to the member state or associated country where the host institution is located. The researcher must comply with the Society and Enterprise Mobility Rule, which is the same as for the Career Restart and the Reintegration Panel, saying that she or he must not have been in the country of the future host for more than 36 months in the 5 years prior to the call deadline. The beneficiary must be an entity from the non-academic sector, as mentioned. This includes all non-academic workplaces of researchers, from industry to business, including SMEs, government, civil society organizations like NGOs, trusts, foundations, etc., some cultural institutions, museums, hospitals, international organizations also included. Global fellowships are composed of an outgoing phase during which the researcher undertakes a secondment to a partner organization in a third country and a mandatory 12-month return period to a host organization, which is called the beneficiary, located in a member state or associated country. The researcher must be an experienced researcher. As mentioned before, this means that he or she should either hold a PhD already or have at least 4 years of research experience, full-time equivalent. The researcher must be a national or long-term resident of a member state or associated country. Long-term residents are researchers who spent a period of full-time research activity of at least 5 consecutive years in one or more member states or associated countries. The researcher must move or have moved from any country to the partner organization located in the third country. And the mobility rule applies only to the outgoing phase of the global fellowship. So the researcher must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the third country where the initial outgoing phase takes place for more than 12 months in the 3 years immediately prior to the call deadline. And the beneficiary must be located in a member state or associated country. And the partner organization must be situated in a third country and is the entity where the initial compulsory outgoing phase takes place. The researcher applies jointly with a host institution located in a member state or associated country for a research project that has an initial outgoing phase in a partner organization in a third country. The host institution recruits the experienced researcher and appoints the supervisor. And also the partner organization that nominates a supervisor for the researcher should nominate a supervisor for the researcher and also provide a letter of commitment. However, the partner organization does not sign the grant agreement. This is signed by the beneficiary in the return host, so the return host solely. And the partner organization does not recruit the researcher and does not claim costs. A word to the letter of commitment, which partner organizations need to provide in the global fellowships. This letter of commitment must demonstrate the real and active participation of in the proposed action, and it must confirm its precise role that is already clearly described, should be already clearly described in the proposal. There is no template for the letter of commitment available. The letter should be an up-to-date letter, which means it should be issued after the call publication date. And it should include a header or stamp to be easily recognized as coming from a specific institution, and it should be signed by the legal representative or someone with equivalent authority. And is only needed for the global fellowship and not for the European. The 2017 call has been open since 11th of April. It will close on the 14th of September. And the proposals will then be evaluated, and in February 2018 we expect the information on the outcome of the evaluation. From March on it will be possible to sign the first grant agreements. A bit more detailed, what happens after the call deadline in September. There will be some days of eligibility check. This is very pragmatic. Whoever complies with the eligibility criteria is eligible. The others are not. Then the proposals will be allocated to the evaluators. This will still be in September. Before then, from October to December, the proposals will be evaluated. In February, as I mentioned before, the first grant agreements will be signed, and from March on, the projects that were positively evaluated can be started. Last possible starting date for the 2017 call will be in September 2019. So you see there's the possibility to delay the start of your project for around 1.5 years. I will explain you a bit more in detail how the proposals are evaluated. The evaluation is done by the Research Executive Agency of the European Commission with the assistance of independent experts. It is a peer review evaluation and it is single stage. Each proposal is assessed by at least 3 experts. This is done remotely. After the remote evaluation, the 3 evaluators meet, most likely also remotely, with the goal, or virtually, with the goal to reach a consensus for the proposal they evaluated. There will be a consensus report then established, which will be fed into the panel review, where the panel ranked list will be established. There are also independent observers involved in the evaluation, but their role is only to observe and report on the evaluation process. The initial allocation of proposals to evaluators is based on keywords matching. They should be aware that this step is very sensitive to the quality of the keywords. And in this year's call, the keywords were updated to reflect better the scientific areas. The evaluation process is full remote, also the consensus phase. The evaluation vice chairs will be involved in the proposal allocation fine-tuning and in the monitoring of the evaluation, and they will do the quality check of the evaluation summary reports that will be sent to the applicants after evaluation. The proposals will be evaluated against the individual fellowship award criteria, applying weighting factors. There is excellence, which weights for 50% of the total weighting, impact weights 30%, and implementation 20%. Evaluation scores will be awarded for each of the 3 criteria. All of the separate elements of each criterion will be considered by the experts in their assessment. An example of the evaluation forms that will be used by the experts in this call will be made available on the participant portal. So as evaluators need to answer the evaluation questions along the different sub-criteria described, you should make sure to specifically address the award criteria in the proposal, and you should make sure to stick to the defined headings and subheadings. For each award criterion, the proposal will be given scores of 0 to 5, and also decimal points can be awarded. So 4.5, 4.6. I'm not going through every score here, but the scores go from 0 to 5. So 0 meaning it could not be assessed, 1 poor, 2 fair, 3 good, 4 very good, and 5 excellent. A self-evaluation form can be found on the participant portal. This can be very useful before submission of the proposals. Once the scores were assessed, the proposals will be ranked within panels by their overall score and funded in ranking order. Success rates were usually between 11 to 14% over the last 3 years. Every applicant, whether successful or not, will receive an evaluation summary report where the evaluators state the strengths and weaknesses of the proposal. If a proposal was not ranked high enough to get funded, it is possible to resubmit it in the next call. Of course, it would be a good idea then to study the evaluation summary report to address the weaknesses stated there and try to ameliorate the proposal accordingly. If you are interested in submitting a proposal, or also if you want to learn more about a certain call, you should go to the respective call page. So To get to the individual fellowship call page, you first go to the participant portal, you tick the MSCA and choose the call, the right call. On the call page, you find the important documents. On the one hand, there is the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions work program, in which the policy background for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions is set out. On the other hand, the guide for applicants, which can be considered as some sort of user's manual. In this document, you find all necessary information, including information about the structure of the proposal. And that brings me to the next slide. There is in every proposal a part A of the proposal, which can be found and edited on the participant portal. In part A, you need to provide an abstract, some general information. You need to choose your scientific area and the descriptors, keywords, and you need to provide specific information on the participating organizations. There is also a budget section, which will be automatically completed based on the information provided. And there is an ethics table, which needs to be filled if applicable. Finally, you need to answer some call-specific questions in section 5 of part A. Oh, I'm sorry, this comes a bit late. But yeah, a word to the budget. The financing is based on a funding mechanism that relies on unit costs, where unit cost is a pre-calculated cost for the implementation of the action. And to obtain the total of the budget, there is a simple formula. You just multiply the value of the unit costs times the number of units. The value of the unit costs, this is defined in the work program. You will see in a minute. Okay. Covered are the expenses related to the recruitment of the researcher, the research training and networking, but also related to the management of the action. And also indirect costs are covered. The maximum amount that the EU will pay is fixed in the grant agreement. And the unit costs are divided into two groups, basically, the researcher unit costs and the institutional unit costs. The money that goes to the researcher, the so-called researcher unit costs, are composed of a living allowance of 4,650 euro, a mobility allowance of 600 euro, and, if eligible, a family allowance of 500 euro. The money that goes to the host institution, the so-called institutional unit costs, are composed of the research training and networking costs of 800 euro and the management costs and overheads of 650 euro. The living allowance is adjusted through the application of a correction coefficient for the cost of living according to the country in which the host organization is located. The adjusted amount will not change in case of secondments to a partner organization in another member state or associated country. For the outgoing phase of the global fellowship, the country correction coefficient of the destination third country partner organization will be applied. However, the adjusted amount will not change in case of secondments to a partner organization in another member state or associated country. The country correction coefficients that will be applied are indicated in Table 1 in Part 3 of the work program. Important to note is that the living allowance is a gross EU contribution to the salary cost of the researcher. Consequently, the net salary results from deducting all compulsory social security contributions as well as direct taxes from the gross amounts. The host beneficiary may pay a top-up to the eligible researchers from another budget source in order to complement this contribution. There's a budget calculation example I would like to give you here. So for a French researcher without family obligations who applies with a university in Germany for 24-month fellowship, the budget calculation would look like that. So the total duration of the fellowship is 24 months. The living allowance is calculated by multiplying 4,650 euros times 24 and times the country correction coefficient for Germany. This will be 110,260 euro. Just a moment, am I right here? Then there is a mobility allowance of 600 euro multiplied by 24. This is 14,400 euro. Exactly. And no family allowance is added as the researcher has no family obligations. The cost for research training and networking come up to 19,200 euro and the management costs and overheads to 15,600 euro. So all in all, the EU contribution to this fellowship will be 159,460 euro. Okay, there is a second example for a global fellowship. Here, this one is about a married Chinese researcher who obtained her PhD in physics in France and was employed in research full-time since 16 May 2008 at a Polish university. The researcher applies for a global fellowship in the physics panel with a 24-month outgoing phase to a university in the US and a 12-month mandatory return phase in Spain. So here you can see the calculations. They sum up to a total researcher cost that is paid, that is 204,991.2 euro, and the amount that will be paid to the institution is 52,200 euro. So there will be a total amount of 257,191.2 euro be paid by the European Union. Okay. Part B is the actual proposal part, the heart of the proposal, where you have to provide a start page, a table of contents, a list of participating organizations, and then address the 3 evaluation criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. There is a page limit of 10 pages that applies to section 1 to 3. In a second document, you need to provide a CV. You have to describe the capacities of the participating organizations and ethical aspects of your projects. And if you are applying for a global fellowship, you also need to provide a letter of commitment of the partner organization where you are planning to spend the outgoing phase of your global fellowship. There is no overall page limit applied to document 2, but the CV part should not exceed 5 pages. The page limit should be strictly respected, as information exceeding the page limit will be marked and reviewers will be instructed to disregard this information, which can greatly damage your application, actually. So I promised in the beginning to show you some call statistics. So here you are. In last year's individual fellowship call, 8,829 proposals were evaluated and 1,188 were funded, which makes a success rate of around 30.4%. Swiss success rate in last year's call was slightly higher. You can see in this graph that also the proportions of the different types of fellowships. The majority of submitted and funded proposals were submitted as standard European fellowships. 894 global fellowships were submitted, of which 117 could be funded. Then 132 proposals were submitted in the Society and Enterprise panel, of which remarkable 48 could be funded. The reason for that is that a certain amount of money was earmarked for this specific panel. So there, the success rate was significantly higher than in the other panels. To complete the picture of the 500 proposals that were submitted in the Reintegration Panel, 67 were funded, and of the 242 proposals submitted in the Career Restart Panel, 31 were funded. Here you see the funded European fellowships per panel. You see a lot of proposals were funded in the life sciences and in the social sciences. And here I show you the funded European fellowships per country. A lot of beneficiaries can be found here in the UK, in Spain, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and also in Switzerland. And with a more stretched y-axis, the rest of the countries here in this graph. And here the funded global fellowship proposals per panel. Before we saw the European fellowships. Here, global fellowships, it is a similar picture as for the European fellowships. A lot of proposals funded in the life sciences and social sciences panels, but also in the engineering and environmental sciences. And here you see the numbers of funded global fellowship proposals per country with regard to the return phase of the fellowship. So beneficiaries are mainly located in the UK, France, Italy, Spain, Germany, the Netherlands, Ireland, and also Switzerland. And the outgoing phases of the global fellowships are mainly spent in the US, also in Canada and in Australia. And finally, here you see the success rates per panel of proposals that were submitted for the first time in red, and the success rates of the proposals that were resubmissions in blue. So you see that resubmissions have a slightly higher chance to receive funding. This might be due to the fact that after the first submission, as you heard, you receive an evaluation summary report in which evaluators state the strengths and weaknesses of your proposal. And with this, you will be able to address the weaknesses and make your proposal stronger for a next submission. Okay. If you are interested in writing and submitting an individual fellowship proposal, you should make yourself familiar with the research participant portal of the European Commission, where you can find all the documents and templates you need if you want to write and submit a proposal. So have a look, for example, at the official Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions website of the European Commission. There's a very useful platform also for mobile researchers called Euresearch. Go have a look there as well. And you can also find a list of national contact points on the participant portal. Each country has its own national contact points. So as an example, if you plan to go to Norway, please contact our Norwegian colleagues. Of course, if you plan to come to Switzerland or if you are based in Switzerland, please feel free to contact us, the Swiss NCPs. And there is also the Frequently Asked Questions blog powered by the Net for Mobility NCP project, where you find a lot of useful information. This year, we will again offer several applicants trainings. If you are interested, please have a look at the Euresearch events webpage. On our website, you can also register to receive news or information in your fields of interest. To help you writing your proposal, we created an online tutorial addressing the different aspects, chapters and subchapters of the proposal, and giving hints and tips how to best address the different chapters and award criteria. To have access to this tutorial, you are asked to register yourself for the Euresearch services on our website. Once you created an account, you write a short email to msca@euresearch.ch stating that you wish to access the tutorial, stating also where you are based and where your future host institution will be. We will give you access and inform you accordingly within 2 working days, usually. Once you have the access, you can log in to your account, go to the MSCA specific page on the Euresearch website, and you will find the link to the tutorial on the lower right under related links. We will only provide access to candidates with a future host institution in Switzerland or to Swiss-based applicants. Unfortunately, we cannot make it available for the general public. So now I would like to answer some questions that were asked in the chat and that were not yet answered by my colleague Isabel. Let's see. There's one question asked by Theodota. How to improve the proposal for resubmission? How they can receive more analytical info? Oh, okay. That's not possible to receive more analytical info from evaluators. However, if you plan to resubmit your proposal, you can turn to your national contact points, and together with them, you might be able to assess the specificities of the comments that the evaluators made in their evaluation summary reports. But as I mentioned, it is not possible to have more specific information on the evaluation by the evaluators themselves. That all they stated in the evaluation summary report, you have to live with that. So there is another question about the Society and Enterprise panel asked by Ali. Is it essential to have a supervisor if we are applying in the Society and Enterprise panel? Yes, it is crucial actually to have a suitable supervisor also there. You will not get around that. There, I mean, you can get in touch with us. We can advise you further how to best find a supervisor in a company, for example. But the answer is yes, it is essential to have a supervisor in the SNE panel. Do you still offer funds to research in the UK? So first of all, it's not us who offer funding. It is actually the European Union who offers the funding, and for the time being, the UK is still a member of the European Union and is treated as such. So the answer would be yes. For the time being, yes. There's another question regarding the budget example I showed you. The question was, did the Chinese researcher need a letter of support from the Polish? Wait, now, this is a bit... Okay, from the letter of support is only needed from the outgoing host. So from the partner organization or the host institution where you will spend the outgoing phase of your fellowship. No, all the other institutions involved, they don't need mandatorily to provide a letter of commitment. Okay, I'm not... are there other questions? Okay, Theodota asked, we should contact NCP via mail or call better. You can do as you like. If you want a written answer, you contact us via mail, but we are also reachable via phone. Okay, and that brings me actually to my last slide. I think, yeah, what I would like to tell you is not to be shy and to get in touch with either one of the Euresearch regional offices. You can find their contacts on our website, or you can also address your questions directly to my colleague Isabel Spüler and myself. We are the two national contact points for the Swiss national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Okay, I would like to mention also that we are offering a proposal review for people who are who intend to come to Switzerland with a European fellowship or who have Swiss return hosts in a global fellowship. We offer this service on a first come, first served basis, and we accept proposals until 1 week before the call deadline in September. So with this, I would like to close this session and thank you very much for your attention. Have a nice day.